welcome back to another edition of the Puncher's Point. Breaking news. According to Mike Coppinger from ESPN, it seems that Errol Spence Jr. and Sebastian Fundora are looking to agree to a fight for October for the junior middleweight WBC and WBO title on PBC Prime Video at the AT&T Stadium. Man, can I just start off by saying everything with the titles and how they, having certain matchups and whatnot. Now, outside of this podcast, Mario asked me a good question. He asked me if, there was going to be a title stripping for Fundora. And my response was, if they do, it might be something similar to how they did with Jamil when he went up to go fight Canelo. This is really interesting. We seen Errol Spence Jr. getting the ring out to Sebastian Fundora, picked up a victory over Tim Tszyu. And it was just unexpected because we all was thinking that maybe Terence Crawford would be next up since he was the one that beat Errol Spence Jr., since he was the one that ended up moving up first. So we obviously thought that maybe Terence Crawford was going to be the next potential fight for Sebastian Fundora, but Errol Spence got in the ring, he got on the mic, and it seems that, according to Mike Coppinger from ESPN, it seems that they're looking to start up a fight for October. But enough about me talking about it. I want to pass it over to you, Mario. What's your thoughts on this fight potentially happening?
First things first, welcome back, Errol Spence. I'm glad that he's finally back into the boxing ring because the last memory I would have wanted from Errol Spence is definitely not that Crawford fight. I believe that if he was going to have few fights left, I believe he should have went out on his own terms. Now, he tweeted something like, this might be the last of me or something like that. Now, then he recently deleted it. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure if he's hinting retirement, but all I know is if this is his last fight, which people are speculating this could be his last fight, it's a good way to end. It's a good way to end off your career, basically going up to 154, defeating Sebastian Fundora and becoming the WBC and WBO junior middleweight champion. Now, does that scenario make the 154-pound division a lot more messy? Absolutely. It's already messy as it is, but that's because everybody's moving up and it's starting to become a very stacked division. I mean, when we talk about this division, Breezy, Terence Crawford, Jamel Charlo, Errol Spence Jr., Madrimov, Virgil Ortiz, Tim Tszyu, Sebastian Fundora, Murtazaliev. I mean, we can go on and on. We can keep on going down the list. Obviously, you got guys who are kind of on like the B tier of that division, like Brian Mendoza. We can go down the list all we like, but the matter of the fact is 154 is stacked right now. And because it's so stacked, it's very unorganized. Now, I personally really do like this fight. A lot of people are saying Sebastian Fundora is a bad matchup for Errol Spence just because of the size advantage. I'm going to be honest, Sebastian Fundora is a very tough matchup for any fighter. I don't care who it is because of that 6'5" and that 80-inch reach. That's going to be real tough for any 154-pounder. And we've seen how tough it was when Sebastian Fundora started using his jab against Tim Tszyu. Obviously, unfortunately, the cut, the incidental elbow, I believe it was, to Tim Tszyu cost him his belt. But overall, make no mistake about it, Sebastian Fundora is a very good fighter, and he's a guy that we should take seriously. Obviously, the man is the WBO and WBC champion for a reason. Now, there's a lot of things that can happen with this fight. Sebastian Fundora wins, and he just continues to kind of build that legacy as one of the best junior middleweights, if not the best junior middleweight in this division. Errol Spence wins. Obviously, you got Murtazaliev at IBF. Whoever can claim that, if him or Bud claims that IBF belt, and if Bud can beat Madrimov, then we got Bud versus Errol Spence 2 for an undisputed fight. And that would be big. That would be big box numbers because, again, we always talk about it. If you lose, you got to get your get back, And I do believe that both of these guys are potentially on another collision course to meet again in that ring. Now, as far as the fight matchup itself, I like it. I really do, but I'm also very skeptical about it. So the reason why I like it is because I do believe this is a very good bounce back fight for Errol Spence. Shout out to Errol Spence for not taking, cheap fights. Shout out to Errol Spence for not taking any tune-up fights, for going straight for another championship, trying to chase more greatness than what he's already chased. Shout out to him, and shout out to Terence Crawford facing Madrimov. We thought it was going to be Sebastian Fundora. He went a different route. That's Terence Crawford's decision. That's Terence Crawford's choice. So, let that sink in. But both of these guys, they're chasing greatness at their own speed. And again, like I said, they could be on a collision course. The reason why I don't like this matchup is because I'm questioning whether or not Errol Spence is the same fighter. And everybody's questioning whether or not Errol Spence is the same fighter because we haven't seen him in that ring since July. Obviously, that was a very bad beating. You think about the car accident, the eye surgery, all that type of stuff. Are we getting the truth or are we getting just a shallow version of himself? And that's what we're gonna have to figure out in October. That's we're gonna get the answers in October. The truth will come out in October, and I do believe that there is a big concern, especially when you're an Errol Spence fan, especially for the boxing community. Is Errol Spence ready to fight? And a lot of people think that his best years are behind him, but we're not going to find out until October. So there's a lot of questions about Errol Spence surrounding this fight. Now, Sebastian Fundora, on the other hand, this is a good matchup for him to prove that Tim Tszyu fight wasn't a fluke, that he could go in there against the best and compete against the best. Sebastian Fundora has one loss, and it was to Brian Mendoza. It's because Brian Mendoza beat him so bad or knocked him out very, unfortunately for Sebastian Fundora, people don't take him that seriously. Sebastian Fundora is a very good fighter, and we talked about how he didn't use his jab as much as he should have when Sebastian Fundora started using that jab. It was a big, big problem for Tim Tszyu. And I do believe that I don't care who you put in front of him, that jab is going to be a big, big problem for anybody in that 154-pound division. With Sebastian Fundora and Errol Spence going head to head, face to face, call it what you want in AT&T Stadium, I think it's definitely going to bring a lot of fans out. If you're a boxing fan, I do think that this is a fight that you definitely want to tune into. And if you are a real boxing fan, a lot of questions that you have about this 154-pound division, I think it's going to be answered with this fight. So overall, if you ask me, I do have my concerns, but if Errol Spence is 100% healthy and he is 100% ready to go to step into that ring, I'm all for it. And if Sebastian Fundora is willing to go and fight Errol Spence, I'm all for it. And look, a lot of people are going to say, well, this fight should have went to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford went a different route. And if Terence Crawford wanted to, he could have took that fight over Errol Spence. Now, as far as the question that Breezy is asking, as far as the question I asked Breezy earlier, will Sebastian Fundora be stripped? He makes a very good point. Maybe after this fight, he possibly gets that belt stripped, and then who knows what happens. All I'm going to say is this: don't strip Sebastian Fundora. Don't strip him because Terence Crawford went in a different direction. That's not fair to Sebastian Fundora. Errol Spence took the opportunity to fight him. There was an opening right there, and that was that. Now if there's news that comes out saying that Sebastian Fundora chose Errol Spence over Terence Crawford, then that's a different story. Because Terence Crawford, being a super champion, he could use that status, and he would be up front in line for that WBC and WBO belt. So if some stories or news comes out saying that Sebastian Fundora chose Errol Spence over Terence Crawford, then I disagree. Then I would say, then you might have to strip him of something. I hate to say that. I hate for Sebastian Fundora to be stripped of his belts, but if that situation, if that scenario is what happened, then I mean, they have a right to do that. But I will say, if Terence Crawford said, you know what, I'm going to go after the WBA champion Imagimov, and Errol Spence said, well, since Sebastian Fundora is open, I'll fight him. Don't strip him. That's just dumb. But obviously, boxing is a crazy sport. But overall, Breezy, I want to get your thoughts on not just the landscape of 154, but also your thoughts on this fight. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have concerns like me? Just give me your thoughts in general.
As far as the landscape of 154, I think 154 has to be the most dangerous but messy division ever. I mean, messy. I mean, like the fighters are petty and nothing, but like they have so many fighters, and it's so many routes you can go. You can go to a Tim Tszyu, a Bud, a Errol, a Fundora. Like it's so many names, and then you still have Brian Mendoza, who's not too far off the loss list, who could still get up in there too. So it's so many names in there. 154 is a huge landscape for boxing. And that's why I say for anybody that's like from 140, 147, that's talking about going into the 154 division, it's a lot of hell up there. It's a lot of guys out there that's a crack. It's a lot of guys out there that can box at that 154 division. And I do believe you can establish yourself in the 154 division as far as becoming champion, undisputed, unified. It's so many names in 154 that all these fighters can build off each other and fight each other. So I don't want to hear no excuses about competition is competition that. It's a lot of names at 154 to make big fights, to make a lot of fights happen, unified, undisputed champs. So let's get it cracking 154. Your time is now. Now, as far as Errol Spence versus Sebastian Fundora, I'm really with you on that same perspective. And the reason I say this is because, and look, I respect Errol Spence Jr. to the highest. You know, we rock with Team EJ. I respect the fact that he lives by the motto, no tune-ups. But at the same time, though, like, I'm a firm believer in this, right? I'm not mad at tune-ups, right? Because at the same time, you got to really kind of gauge of how your body is. Because how how do we know? Is what I'm saying. I'm not Errol Spence Jr. Mario's not Errol Spence Jr. We're not going to get on here and claim that we are Errol Spence Jr. So we don't know how his body is until he gets in that ring. But what we are saying is that, hey, it doesn't hurt to get in the ring with a tune up to just see where you at, where's your punching ability at, where is your defense ability at, where's your body at, where's your IQ at, where and I'm not gonna question the man's heart because he showed in the Crawford fight he has heart, but where is like the where is that physical determination? Like, is your body gonna react to certain punches the same way it did before the Crawford fight? It's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I feel like with a tune-up, you know, we can kind of gauge a little bit. And like I said, this is not me saying, oh, he's stupid or he's dumb. We respect what he's doing, but at the same time, though, it's a very risky game. I mean, Mario said it earlier, all the car accidents, all the, the times he didn't got in wrecks, the surgeries on the eyes, and then the beating he took to Crawford. So it's a lot of things we have to gauge in that fight. I like the fight, you know what I'm saying? It's just I have so many questions. As far as Sebastian Fundora, this is really big for him. You know, he took that knockout loss, and usually when a fighter gets knocked out, of course, you got the boxing side where they come out and they clown fighters for getting knocked out. But just like almost any other fighter, what did he do? He came back and guess what? He beat Tim Tszyu. So now he's gonna have a fight against one of the guys that ruled the 147 division for a long time in Errol Spence Jr. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the beauty of boxing. Comebacks and stories like this. The biggest thing with this situation is we got a comeback story kid in Sebastian Fundora who took a knockout loss, and now he's back up trying to get back up in that title picture. Errol Spence Jr., who ruled the 147 landscape for a long time, is now at 154, and now he's trying to establish himself within the 154 division. Now, if Errol Spence Jr. retires, I would like to say this ahead of time. We respect and appreciate everything Errol Spence Jr. has done in the sport of boxing. Win, lose, or draw, he has nothing to hang his head down above. I mean, he took all the best fights he could. He got in there and he dominated 147 division. I mean, there's nothing he can feel ashamed about, whether he win, loses, or draw, or anything, whatever. He's done a lot in the sport of boxing. It's just that at a certain time of point, like they always say, you know, boxing is a young man's game. And you know, when you get to a certain age, when your body gets to a certain point in your career, your body is just not the same no more. So it's gonna be a lot of questions answered because we all got a lot of questions, and you know, hopefully, you know, come October, you know, they seal the deadline on that, and we get all the answers and questions, you know, and we get everything we need to know. But as far as the next, it's not a bad fight. I like it, you know.
I want to go back to what you mentioned about the 154-pound division. It's probably the most skillful division in boxing, too. You know, not only can these guys crack, but like you said, they can box as well. And there's a lot of skill in that 154-pound division. So not any 140-pounder or a 147-pounder could just climb up to 154 and think they're going to rule it. It's not the way it works. This 154-pound division is a very risky division to be stepping into. And on top of that, we're getting Virgil Ortiz versus Tim Tszyu. I mean, that to me is the most exciting fight at 154, in my opinion. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. That is true. However, as far as already made, developed 154 pounders, Virgil Ortiz and Tim Tszyu, that's a fight I've been waiting for a very long time. And I do believe whoever wins that fight automatically deserves to be a number one contender for either four of those belts. You know, so we've been waiting for this. You know what I'm saying? We've been waiting for the 154-pound division to kind of heat up. Recently, it's just been Jermell Charlo kind of taking it over. We had stints of like Tony Harrison, Brian Mendoza, and all them. So we've had like times where might have switched a little bit, but Jermell Charlo owned this division for a very long time. And now, since Jermell Charlo is no longer champion, now it's all of a sudden with Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford moving up to 154, and then Sebastian Fundora upsetting Tim Tszyu. You got Madrimov in there and Murtaza Aliyev. I mean, it's a stacked division, man, and time will tell who is going to be the king of that division. But overall, I'm going to say this before we end it. Errol Spence, if you're going to come into 154, my guy, look, I like you and everything. I respect everything you've done in boxing. But when we saw you in that ring, I'm not going to lie. You had some, you were looking a little chubby, my guy. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you put down like the protein shakes and started eating the donuts, but I'm just saying, Earl Spence, you got whatever you've been doing to get a little chubbier. You gotta drop that habit. You gotta go back to your trainers. You gotta go back to your nutritionist, and you gotta go back in there and look like the truth again. I don't want to see a chubby Earl Spence, and I don't want to see an Earl Spence who looks like he's dehydrated and looks like he's a shell of himself. So Earl Spence, get back in the gym, work out, find a trainer that you can step in with and can teach you some new things, and go out there and try to be the best truth that you could possibly be. Breezy, do you want to add something?
Do miss when he was working with Blu-ray Fitness. He was working with Blu-ray Fitness when he was getting those back-to-back stoppages. In my personal opinion, I would love to see Blu-ray and Earl reunited because I felt like when those two was together, Earl was on a killer streak, just putting dudes in the dirt and getting stoppages. So I'm not trying to hate. I'm not trying to say Earl don't know what he's doing, but I'm just saying, just judging off of the history and the chemistry that they had in the past and the amount of success Earl had when he was working with Blu-ray, the numbers speak for itself, and he was getting those stoppages. So I would love to personally see him get back with Blu-ray. That's all I gotta say.
And as far as trainers, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I don't think he's got a new trainer yet. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see who is going to be training him for this fight. I mean, there's a lot of guys I can think of. You can go to I would again Eddie Reynoso would be a good trainer, but then again, a lot of his fighters, he trains a lot of Mexican fighters, and as far as aggressiveness, Earl Spence could definitely use that in his career. Freddie Roach kind of is stepping into some roles. He's not as active as he used to be, but still. Any thoughts on mine, Breezy, on who he should join?
The Caleb Plant trainer, Bread Man. There's who was another one out there that you can go to.
A lot of English fighters, but Ben Davison would be a very good trainer to join as well.
Ben, Caleb Plant trainer. I call me crazy. Call me crazy. Bozy Ennis. And I know it's kind of crazy because that landscape between 147 and 154 and they could fight. I'm just saying, hypothetically, let's say that's not in the worst. Let's just say we don't get that. Bozy Ennis, man, he is a hell of a coach. Look what he's done with Jerron. So he's got some nice options out there, though.
I mean, if we're just naming random names, and a lot of these guys, look, we're going to say this right now. A lot of these guys aren't going to be Earl Spence's new trainer. How about Lomachenko's father? I mean, that would be a good one too, kind of teaching him how to be a little bit more crafty. I mean, Lomachenko's father did a little bit of work with Usyk as well. And he's got some very, very interesting techniques on how to train fighters, and there's a reason why Lomachenko and Usyk are very crafty as well. Calvin Ford is obviously up there, but between him and the beef with Tank Davis and Earl Spence, I don't know if that's going to happen, but
Yeah,
it's
that's not
hard.
gonna happen.
I will say this: it's hard to relationship that you had with Derrick James because that was a relationship you guys had for so long, and you guys did a lot of very successful things together. So the fact that this is going to be one of the first fights in a very long time that Errol Spence doesn't have Derrick James in his corner, probably the first fight in his professional career where he doesn't have Derrick James in his corner, it's going to be tough to kind of replace him. So Errol Spence better pick a trainer very, very carefully. That's all I got to say. With that being said, I say we wrap it up right now. Again, we're going to say it. Make sure you guys stay on point with the Puncher's Point. Make sure you guys tune into the Puncher's Point. Again, we drop in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and potential Saturdays and potential fight nights as well. We apologize that we haven't been as active recently. A lot of technological issues. It's a long story. We could make a whole 30-minute episode on that alone, and we're not going to do that. But regardless, we apologize that we haven't been as active as we would like to be. However, I feel like we're getting back in the grind. I feel like, we kind of solved some problems, solved some issues. So we're going back to the drawing board. We're going to keep uploading episodes. We're going to keep giving you guys the most recent news and boxing. So make sure you guys stay in tune for that. And again, I'm going to say it right now. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure you guys go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, X, Threads. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you guys interact with us, comment in the YouTube videos, everything like that. Make sure you guys go listen to the podcast, most importantly, because we are a podcast. So make sure you guys go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio podcast, you name it, Amazon podcast. We got it. Any podcast that you could think of, type in the Puncher's Point and make sure you guys tune in. And also, a lot of you guys are bettors out there. Make sure you guys listen to our episodes because we be giving some good betting odds for y'all. So you know what? With that being said, Breezy, I say we wrap it up. And I'm going to say it one more time. Make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point.